All right, shalom to the elect of Israel. I'm going to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that were well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect of Israel. And this lesson, all right, is going into this movie. This is a spiritual movie review of The Running Man. Okay, and as you see here on the screen, it says Hunt Him Down. Because, when you look at it, recently saw it, it's like, it does have some spiritual points in it, man. It's just going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert. But, this man here you see on the screen, he was put in the game. And ultimately, he had to do it. He had to go through it to get some money, to come out better at the end, pretty much, than how he started off. All right, and it's like in how, we, in the beginning, well, I'm not saying in the beginning, but we're going to go through all types of hell before, we're willing to be of the elect, before we get up out of here. When we get up out of here, we're going to be in a better condition. We're going to go through all types of hell, But in this movie, it's lucky if I don't remember all the points that I had initially thought of. But in this movie, this guy here, he is being hunted. Him and 3 other people. They were being hunted by like 5 hunters. And really he's he would be you would call him like the elect out of the 3. Because he's the one that made it to the end. You see? As Yahweh Shai said, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. The other 2, they got cut off, man. They got destroyed. They got off, deleted by the hunters. And those other ones would be, you would say that what? They're Israel. They're the 2/3 of Israel, though. Okay? We're the wicked of Israel. And the Lord is going to allow this devil to have his way with the majority of our people. All right, but the elect, they're the ones that's going to, make it through. Okay? Everyone that shall be found written in the book. All right? This really do got some, some spiritual points. But let me get some of that real quick. This is Daniel 12:1, and at that time Jacob's trouble shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. So the elect of Israel are going to be the ones that get delivered out of Jacob's trouble. See, out of a chaotic time. And him, all right, this guy, I don't remember his name, but he was delivered out of that chaotic situation. He was delivered out of that. He had to go through some shit, man. Okay? And also in this movie, right? Oh, and by the slide, if I move on to the next point, let me get this, because as I said, there were 3, and the 2 of them got killed. But only one of them remained. This is Zechariah chapter 13, verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith Yahweh, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the 3rd shall be left therein. So 2/3 of the nation of Israel in America, that's why it says that in all the land. All right, it says it's going to be cut off and die. Okay? They're going to be cut off and die, man. All right, which is 66.6% of the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, all right, in the land of America, are going to be destroyed. Okay? They're going to be destroyed, but, the 3rd, but the 3rd is going to be, left. Verse 9, and I will bring the 3rd part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. And that through the fire, going into, spiritually through the trials and tribulations, as well as, literally through the fire. The righteous shall scarcely be saved. And when you watch towards the end of this movie, this man, the last, before everything gets better for him, in the end of this movie, he's in a plane, and, he's fighting off the last enemy, right? And, the plane, they take over the plane or whatever, the people controlling it and all of that, they take over the plane. But thing is, the plane, supposedly crashes, and they think that he survived, because normally nobody survives this game called The Running Man, but he survived, okay? But at the end, before the plane, supposedly crashed, somehow he escaped out of it. You see? Somehow he avoided that destruction. And what do the scriptures say? It's 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18, and if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? Because when the destruction comes, the elect are going to scarcely be saved. It's going to be almost like they don't get saved, but they ultimately will. The last second, they might they might see the nukes in the air and then get, taken up before the nukes hit. Well, of course they're going to get taken up before the nukes hit, but, it's going to be like scarcely, man. All right. Another thing, the scriptures say this, the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. See? So the elect, when Yahweh Shah returns, they're going to get beamed up into what the world ignorantly calls UFOs, which are the chariots of the Lord. Verse 13, in the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And that earthquake is talking about the nuclear destruction. Right? And the 10th part, which should say 10 parts, because you go into that etymology, that Greek word for 10th is 10. Apostle Tahar brought that out, I remember. And America is divided up into 10 FEMA regions. It says in the 10th part, or should say in the 10 parts of the city fell, the city being America, all right, it's being described as a city here, right? And it said, so when the nuclear destruction happens, all of America is going to be destroyed. It says, and in the earthquake, in the nuclear destruction, were slain of men 7,000, meaning anybody on America, in America, on the soil of America, when those nukes touch down, are going to be destroyed. And the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the power of heaven. Because the remnant, they're going to see their destruction, and they're going to be a little afraid at it. But ultimately, they're going to praise Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. You see? So, that was a spiritual thing. He escaped right at the last moment. And another thing also, in this movie, okay, they show AI, okay? They show how, this devil, he saw, could most definitely use AI to demonize us, okay? Make us, when the persecution of Hebrew Israelites starts ramping up, they might use AI, which is short for artificial intelligence, to start, falsely accusing us of stuff, making us literally look like we said something. You see it all on Instagram and everything, how these these different AI reels and videos are make real people, make it look like damn near real people. You see? So in the movie, you have, because once again, remember, this man is in a game. So him being in a game, it's all of these people, right, somewhere else watching him survive being hunted, okay? It's a bunch of people watching him survive being hunted, and occasionally he'll give messages to the people like, he'll be like, ha, I made it, mother effer, et cetera, et cetera. Like he'll record himself saying that, right? But there are times in the movie where this man, right, where basically the people that put him in the game, I guess they call themselves the network, they used AI an AI video of him to make him say something that he never said, right? And they did this more than once. The first time, they made it seem like he said something crazy, which when he was around, basically Salakia. Once, the first time I remember, they used the video when he was around people that were trying to help him, because he was broadcasted live, or the Salakia. Well, Salakia. My brain is messing up. Let me restate it again. During this movie, right, he was getting hunted. So he came across some people that was trying to help him, right, that, he found help some Jakes. And while he was with them, right, because as he's in the game, you see that his face is plastered all around the area, the city that he's, hiding in and everything like that. Like if you see this man, report him in, and I mean, that's going to come to the prophets. But when he was around these certain people, these certain Jakes, the first time, right, that were trying to help him, which helped him a little bit, they turned the news on, the TV on, and they saw an AI video of him that whoever put him in the game made, right? They saw an AI video of him saying something that he really didn't say, and that demonized him. You see? Look at that word, demonize. Demonize death. Definition. It says portray as wicked and threatening. Yeah. That's what they did to him. They portrayed him as being bad. Okay? And later on, towards the end, they did it again, making it look like he said things that he didn't say. So, I mean, we ultimately know that demonization is coming. The persecution of the prophets is coming. We know that. Let me get, where is it? It's the book of St. John, chapter 15, and verse 20. Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. You see, so Yahweh Shai is our Lord. We're his servants, right? He was persecuted. We're no better than him, so we're going to get persecuted too. All right? That's coming. Yeah, that's coming, man. All right? Let me get this. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 26, starting at verse 57. It says, And they that laid hold on Yahweh Shai led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him afar off unto the high priest's palace, and went in, and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Yahweh Shai to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At the last came 2 false witnesses and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. You see? So there were lots of false witnesses, all right, arising against Yahweh Shai. You see? A false witness is somebody lying on you, telling a story about you. That's a false witness, So, this happened to Yahweh Shai, man. This is going to happen to us. We're going to have people, saying things about us and all of that. Which, I mean, it happens now. Like, on a low level, people calling, GMS, baby touches and all of this extra stuff. All right? What did Yahweh Shai say, though? This is the book of Matthew, chapter 5, starting at verse 10. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. See? So Yahweh Shai first said, blessed are you when you're persecuted for righteousness' sake. So when you're persecuted because of this truth, for the cause of this truth, Yahweh Shai, you're blessed. Right? And he said, blessed are you when men shall revile you. Yeah, say all type of shit to you. We see that all the time. Not even from other Israelite camps or from Esau sometimes, just from regular Jake coming to the camp, saying BS. And even online, like the Elder Menat Hazak by GMS South Carolina 08, he shows Jake all the time talking shit about, Hebrew Israelites this and that, And it says, and persecute you, meaning treat you badly because of what you believe in. And shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. So we're going to have that, It says, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. All right? They persecuted the prophets before us, but Yahweh Shah is saying, rejoice and be exceedingly glad, because they did the same thing to the prophets before us. All right? And also because our reward is great in heaven. All right, so let me read it again. Matthew 5:12. Rejoice and be exceeding glad. So Yahushua is saying, if this happens to you, you're persecuted and everything, be happy. Why? For great is your reward in heaven. Great is our reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. See? They persecuted the prophets which were before us, man. You see? So ultimately we are going to get persecuted. Okay? But guess what? Let me get this real quick. This devil, it's like, when this devil, because I've heard brothers say it all the time, when this devil starts, trying to persecute the brothers, everything, you might have your face on billboards and stuff. People looking for you. It's Proverbs 19:9. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. So those people that do bear false witness on us, the Lord is going to deal with them. All right. Those people so look, understand that the persecution is coming, and we're going to be demonized, portrayed as wicked and threatened. We are now, even on a low level. People, as soon as you say Hebrew Israelites, people already, think they threatening and evil and this, that, and the third, But really, we're advocates of peace. Now, there's different sects. All right, but us here at Great Millstone, we're advocates of righteousness. I'll say it like that. We're advocates of righteousness. All right, we want Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai to establish righteousness, and we stand for him. We stand for his word, okay? In the face of whomever, all right? But a false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. So the persecution is coming, but understand the Lord is going to deal with our persecutors, though. He's going to deal with them. They're not going to go unpunished, as it says here. You see? They're not going to go unpunished, all right? So we're going to make that clear. But this AI technology that's out here, okay, just might be used to demonize the men of the Lord. And also, okay, this guy, right, the running man, and I mean, that's, let me just say, because it says hunt him down. And we know this devil is going to want the men of the Lord. He's going to want the elect. He's going to roll on the elect. Let me get this in the Blue Letter Bible. This is the book of Isaiah 59 and verse 19. And it says, so shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. When the enemy is Esau, when he comes in like a flood, okay, with that destructive force come down with his his troops against the men of the Lord. For example, you might have SWAT vehicles or whatever type of vehicles he comes with. They might surround your house, or surround you or whatever you might be at or something like that. In their uniform, their gear with their guns and all of that stuff. You see, that's them coming in like a flood, a very, very destructively, a very overwhelming force, right? And it says the spirit of the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. And that word for standard, right, in the Hebrew is what? Nawas. It says to flee, escape. So the Lord is going to allow an escape out of that. Now think about this, right? If without the Lord, how could somebody get out of a situation like that where this devil is surrounding you, there's no way out? There ain't no way out for somebody like that. That's without the Lord that's in that situation. But the Lord's gonna get a way out. He's gonna make a way out for his elect. And that's gotta be by spiritual power, whether it be to fly away, disappear, whatever, even to fight back with spiritual powers, So this devil's going to eventually come after the elect, man, okay? Demonize them, eventually come after them, Let me get this scripture. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12. Starting at verse 16. Verse 17, it says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. The dragon, being Esau, was wroth with the woman. Wroth means what? Gidzo, it says, to provoke, to arouse to anger, to be provoked to anger, be angry, be wroth. Cain was wroth. It says angry, wroth. So to be angry. Right? It says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. The woman, when you read this chapter, talking about Israel, right? And went to make war with the remnant of her seed, not the whole. Well, it said went to make war with the remnant of her seed. This is talking about the elect of Israel, that righteous remnant. It says, which keep the commandments of Yahweh and have the testimony of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. See? So, and this matches up with the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, starting in verse 70. It says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection, which means uprising, upon those that fear the Lord, upon the elect. This devil is going to roll on the elect. He's going to come down after the elect. And you see here, in this movie, this man, okay, which out of the three people he was with, represents, the elect. Okay, when you're viewing it with a spiritual eye. And he was being hunted. And he made it out at the end, okay? And through everything that was happening, because he came to some close calls, but he got out of it, though. See? And the scriptures talk about it, because it came with some close calls. Like, how the hell did he get out of this? It's always like, it's always like a way he got out of it. But this man, he was, got out of it, man. This is Psalms chapter 34. And verse 17, the righteous cry, and Yahweh heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. Jump down to verse 19, it says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but Yahweh delivereth him out of them all. You see? And the scriptures talk about, in Job 5, the different conditions, we're going to be facing in Jacob's trouble. That stuff ain't going to touch the elect. You see? But Esau, comes down after the elect. Some brothers are going to get taken, and martyred. All right? But the elect are going to be all right. Okay? Overall, the elect are going to be all right. They're going to have divine protection. You see? And the Lord going to give certain brothers spiritual powers, man. Okay? To defend themselves with, for their protection. Okay? And when you get spiritual powers, you are supposed to give the praise to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. It's like how a brother might say, that was a good lesson you did. You're supposed to say, call halal Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, or all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Which halal means praise, not praises, but you get the idea. All right? But this is a very spiritual movie. Okay, brothers, if you want to see it, you just go to the movies or go on one of these websites, all right, that you can watch free movies on and see it, all right. But this is a good movie, man. So that's one, and it was spiritual, okay, and it shows how because you had one dude at the end, the elite. You would say he represented the elites because he was, working stuff behind the scenes, had the people fooled and all of that. At the very end, okay, there was fire involved at the end, I believe, okay? A ring of fire, but at the very end, this guy, who with a spiritual eye, once again represents the elect, he came and stood over the guy who was running everything behind the scenes, which he represents the elites, okay? At the end, he stood over him, so he was in a position of power, and the guy who was running stuff behind the scenes wasn't. And he even said, in a recording, right towards the end, this guy who represents the elect, he said, don't pay attention, because the thing was called the network, okay? I think the whole thing that he was in was called the network, But he said, don't pay attention to, but pay attention to who runs it or controls it or something like that. So that was, something right there. But at the end, he stood over this international, he stood over the guy who was running stuff behind the scenes, who represents the international bankers. And we know that after the destruction, all right, the elect, all right, they're going to be lords over these heathens, man, okay? And the elites are going in chains. Right now, they're untouchable. And that's what he was, the guy who represented the elites in the movie, he was in the position of being untouchable. It was damn near like he was untouchable, right? But towards the end, at the end, he was touchable, okay? He got put to death. But we know, according to prophecy, at the end, the elect. Hey, let me just get the scriptures, man. All right, but at the end, the elect are going to take these international bankers in the chains, in slavery. This is the book of Psalm 149, starting at verse 5. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of Yahweh be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. These are rulers. To execute upon them the judgment written, this honor have all his saints. Praise ye Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai. All right, and the king and the noble, those are rulers, man. So these international bankers, these elites, right, who rule the world behind the scenes, they're going into slavery. They going into slavery, man. See? We're going to go get them. If we're the elect, we're going to go get them out of their bunkers. They're going to run to and hide. It's going to be over. Jeremiah 16:16, behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain, from every hill, and out of the holes of the rocks. All right? The elect are going to go and get these international bankers from wherever they're hiding at after the nuclear destruction, because these elites, they're going to survive the nuclear destruction to go into slavery. The Lord ain't done with them. All right? Not yet. But, that's basically it, So, brothers, I can say I recommend seeing this movie, But, hey, man, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, okay? But, Slakia, I'm going to need another precept. So the elect, they're going to be over the heathen, over all the heathen nations. I'm going to end it with this. Revelation chapter 2, verses 25 on down. It says, but that which ye have already, hold fast till I come, which is his faith we have. Hold on to it, to when all the way to when Yahweh Shai returns. He says, and those that do that, which are the elect, he says, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, so to those that endure to the end, to him will I give power over the nations, over the heathen nations. You're going to receive power over these heathen nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter, so they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. So that's what's coming to the elect. Power over the heathen nations, upon much, much more. So hold on to the faith, as he said. So with that, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem Rakak Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, every well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect of Israel. Shalom to the elect.